Hello, everyone. This is Mariah Marish, Assistant Professor of English and member of Goodwin University's UDL 3.0 cohort. Today, I will be reflecting on my journey through this cohort and some of the changes I've made to my focus course, English 102, Composition and Literature. To start, let me clarify what was going on with English 102. This course had not been updated in a long time, and it showed. The course shell felt like we were giving students a dilapidated ladder and expecting them to reach the second story of a house. It was not a safe learning experience, and it was frankly a mess. There was way too much information in some places and not enough in other areas where students actually needed support. There were too many options, and from an instructor's point of view, it was a nightmare to navigate. I had already made many adjustments when I taught the course previously, so when I got approved to officially redesign the course, I at least had a decent foundation to be working with. Now, in terms of UDL, I had been informally applying these principles for years, even without formal training. But finally, getting trained in UDL has been so helpful. It's given me vocabulary and a framework for things I had already been doing, and it also introduced me to strategies I had not yet considered. So when it came to pick a focus area of English 102 for this cohort, I chose the literary theory module. In this unit, students were supposed to explore different literary theories, pick one they connected with, and apply it to a text. On paper, great. But in practice, students really struggled with it. They had a hard time choosing a theory, they didn't quite grasp how that theory applies to everyday life, and their reflections felt something like you would read on SparkNotes. Really surface level and sterile, and this hurt my heart a little bit. I love theory. It's so much more than analyzing a text. It helps people consider different perspectives and thought processes, and I wanted my students to understand that. So I chose this module as my focus because I knew it had so much potential, both in terms of meaningful content and in creating opportunities to support and engage students better. So, in terms of UDL, when it came to boosting student engagement, I was already hitting the nail on the head in a lot of ways. I was incorporating 7.2, optimize relevance, value, and authenticity, 8.4, increase mastery-oriented feedback, and 8.3, foster collaboration and community. So I take feedback very seriously and I commit plenty of time to it. I try to explain why these topics are being discussed and how they can stem beyond the English classroom. And I do my best to promote an open, encouraging vibe in the class, even though it's asynchronous. But for improvements, I decided to focus on one of my favorite UDL concepts, checkpoint 7.3, nurture joy and play. This was something I felt was missing from the original theory assignment and something I really wanted to bring into the course. Learning should be joyful. Surprise, surprise. Students should be able to have fun while learning. To increase joy, I wanted to give students more options, which also coincides with checkpoint 7.1, optimize choice and autonomy. So the original assignment required a traditional essay, but I wondered if it could be a PowerPoint or an informational video. This way, students could demonstrate their understanding in a format that felt more authentic to their learning style. In terms of representation, I was already using 1.2, offer alternatives for auditory information, 2.1, clarify vocabulary and symbols, and 2.5, illustrate through multiple media. For example, I provide videos, texts, and infographics to enhance the learning experience so students aren't stuck with one format. And I'm also sure to clarify all vocabulary, like point of view and analysis, even if it might seem obvious. So for adjustments, I decided to focus on checkpoint 3.3, cultivate multiple means of making meaning. Say that 5 times fast. My main area of redesign here was the discussion board. The existing board encouraged peer interaction, but it was surface level and a little lonely, honestly. And as I've said before, learning should never feel lonely. So I started revamping the discussion structure by creating more intentional prompts. I also made a key change. Instead of letting everyone choose a different text, I had all students analyze the same text. And yes, I know that goes against some ideas in UDL that emphasize choice, but in this case, I wanted students to have a shared reference point so their conversations could go deeper. Everyone could engage with each other more meaningfully when they were all talking about the same story, though through different theoretical lenses. So for the discussion, students analyzed 2 literary theories from a list of 4 and then applied them to a shared text. In the peer responses, students were asked to identify any gaps in logic, missed opportunities, or ways to deepen the application of theory. So unlike many other peer reviews in English courses, this was less about grammar or APA and more about ideas. I wanted peer feedback to center on content and critical thinking and not mechanics. So after that, students revised their initial analysis into a formal essay. They also included a short reflection explaining how peer feedback influenced their revisions, what they used, what they didn't, and why. This helped build metacognition and reinforce the importance of feedback as a tool, not just a checkbox. And once again, I need to acknowledge that yes, after initially exploring alternative formats, I did keep the final assignment as an essay, partly because they do need to demonstrate academic writing in English 102, and partly because other modules in the course provided more room for choice. So I felt that in this particular module, an essay made the most sense. Finally, action and expression. I was already succeeding in checkpoints 6.1, set meaningful goals, and 6.3, organize information and resources. I ensure students have clarity on the learning goals throughout the semester, though I did need to make the reason for these goals clearer. I spent time creating an Excel spreadsheet for every course with every student to keep track of student concerns and to look for themes in their individual and their group learning experience. So to strengthen the course, I focused on promoting ongoing reflection and revision with checkpoint 6.4, enhanced capacity for monitoring progress. Again, after that peer discussion, students write that literary theory essay, but the focus on this checkpoint is on the reflection, right, where they explain how they use peer feedback. This builds self-awareness and encourages students to take ownership of their learning process, including considering what feedback they use and the feedback that they can choose not to use. So overall, this cohort has been so valuable, especially while in the midst of redesigning this course. While I had been utilizing UDL without even knowing it, being able to recognize concepts now makes it so much easier to apply them to my courses. It's really a freeing experience, and I can tell it's making a difference on my students since I'm already incorporating much of what I've learned.